done an intro about you, but if you can tell us a little bit more about you and share your journey and your success and your real estate, including your secret sauce, quote unquote, in investing.
Sure. So I did not start my career in real estate investing at all. I'm a first generation American. My parents are from Haiti. And all I was taught as a kid was you go to college and you become a doctor, lawyer, professor, engineer. Like that was success. And so I went to school. I became a lawyer. I was really, really, really miserable as a lawyer. But that's a whole other story. All I knew about real estate investing was that I had to buy my own house. That's all I was taught. I don't know if any of you guys were, got that same message, but that was all we got in my house. So I went to buy a house, and this was in LA in 2005. I know a few of you are in LA. So you know how even back then it was really expensive to find a somewhat decent house in a neighborhood without drive-by shootings, right? You're going to be spending upwards of $500, $600, $700,000, even back in 2005. And so I was working as an attorney at the time. I was making six figures, lower side of six figures, but not enough to get a house by myself. And a friend of mine who was in a similar boat suggested that we get a duplex. That he would live on one side, I'd live on the other. And since I could afford half a house, I thought, okay, sure, that's a great idea. But instead of finding a house with two equal sides, we ended up finding this property that had a larger downstairs. It was this beautiful 1915 Craftsman that we both fell in love with. And the downstairs was bigger. There was a 2-bedroom apartment upstairs that had beautiful views, but was smaller. And then there was this converted garage in the back. Instead of each of us taking a separate unit, we decided that we would each take a bedroom in the downstairs. We rented out the upstairs. We rented out that converted garage. We even rented out our basement. And before I knew it, we were house hacking and our tenants were paying our mortgage. And I thought, oh, that's really great, and then there were tax benefits and all that stuff. So it's like, that was very sweet. But I still wasn't thinking about real estate as a career or something to do longer term. It was just a way to get that house that I was told that's what I needed to get. When I met my husband, he had a duplex. Then we got a single family rental. And when the market crashed and the houses were on sale, we sold a duplex and we started flipping houses. And that's all I knew about real estate investing, because that's what I saw on HGTV, and I thought, oh, that looks kind of fun, right? So that's what we did, because that's all I knew. And we did that until about 2015, and we were doing really well because houses were on sale, and then the prices were just going. So mistakes were easily forgiven in that type of market. But by 2015, houses were not quite so on sale. It was getting a lot more competitive. And I realized flipping was really a job, and it was a short-term job, and then you'd be done, and then you have to start over again. And we were, and it's so expensive in LA. So at first we started, our houses were in the 300,000 range and 400 and 500. And it's a lot to invest. And I decided I wanted to do buy and hold. And I started looking for a fourplex in LA, because that was as much as I could imagine at the time. But I thought, okay, I'm going to get a fourplex and then we'll rent it out and we'll be making money. And a fourplex in LA was easily 2 million plus, and there was no cash flow. And it was super frustrating because I was having a hard time finding these flips that made sense. And then the buy and hold didn't make any sense. And then at that point, I met Robert Helms, who's the host of the Real Estate Guys radio podcast. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him, but we have a mutual friend. And I was telling our mutual friend, Kyle Wilson, that I was super, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. The flipping is really challenging right now. And then also I can't find a fourplex. I'm looking for a fourplex. Nothing makes sense. he said, you should talk to my friend Robert Helms. He's going to be in town tomorrow. He's done hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate. He's the host of the #1 real estate podcast in the country. You should talk to him. It's like, sure. So I go and talk to him, and 10 minutes changed everything, and it just kind of created a quantum leap and why I'm here. So he was asking me about what I was doing. I told him about the flipping, and I told him about the looking for this fourplex. And he said, you know, LA is a tough market. I always say, live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense. And I went, I never thought of that. All right. I always just assumed that you invest where you could drive to your property, touch it, and invest that way. You guys are you're very sophisticated at this point, but at that point I was like, what? He literally opened up the world to me. And then the next thing he said was, oh, and you could buy that fourplex by yourself, but you're limited to your own capital and credit. He said, alternatively, you'll bring a group of investors together and you could get a 100 or 200 unit apartment building. And like my mind just exploded at that point, because I was like, that's a thing? Like you could do that? And we were, at this point, we were self-employed, and it's so hard to get a loan for, residential. And I was like, wow, okay, I want to do this. And I went home, I told my husband, it's like, there's this thing, it's called syndication. Like, we're going to apartment buildings. We're like, oh my God, we're going to do that. So we bought tickets that night for the Real Estate Guys Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar. So this was in October of 2015. I met Robert Helms. Their seminar was in January 2016. And so we went to Phoenix, and a lot of it was like way over my head, but all I knew was I loved this. I wanted to do this. And we were so excited. So we signed up with them they had a inner circle mentoring program. So we signed up for that. I met, so a lot of you are Rod Cleef. There's another multifamily mentor called Brad Sumrock. He was speaking at that event. We went to his event in March, signed up with him, and as we invested a lot, but we just like hit the ground running. That year, we passively invested in 2 deals. We syndicated 4, and we got over 1,000 units in that first year. By the end of 2016, we were just like on fire, which was amazing. Though one of the things I realized, and Chad, Kenneth, those of you who started this mastermind realized too, it's like, as I was going to all these conferences, I'm like, this is amazing, this is so good for women. And also, between being a lawyer and doing real estate full time, I became a coach, a life and career coach. And then actually my specialty was an abundance coach for women. I was a money coach for women. So I was already sort of really honed in on women and abundance. And I was going, this is such an amazing thing for women to be doing, but there are no women in this room. Like, in that mastermind that I was in with the real estate guys, I was the only woman of 19 people, or 19 people in this mastermind. I was the only woman. And often when I was at events, I'm sure you ladies know, like, what are we, like maybe 10% of the room? And then like what percentage on stage? Often 0, or maybe there's 1. There were so few women. And, so at the syndication seminar, Russell Gray, who's Robert Helms' partner, he's always talking about, when you're syndicating, you want to build your brand, build your network. Who do you want to work with? And I was at the hotel gym the day after, and it's like just going through what I'd learned, and it came as this divine download, real estate investor goddesses. Because I realized, like, who do I want to work? I want to work with women, with goddesses. And I've been doing a lot of studying over the past like 14, 15 years. That was that like of the feminine, the divine feminine. So this was something that I was really tuned into. And it's like, how do we as women work best in this world? And that's what I'm going to be, I'll share more about that. Like, how does that marry with real estate? Because that's what I'm really passionate about. but it came as this download, like, bring women into this room, help 1 million women create financial freedom through real estate. And it was like, this mission. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. I'm figuring that out. I'm still like, don't quite know how I'm going to do it, but little by little, we're getting there. But I just, like, it came. There was a book idea that came. There was a podcast that came. Like, all of it was like, came down. And so I just started to follow that guidance and have put it out there. And there was a lot of women were like, yes, I so would love to do real estate. I just don't know how. I'm really intimidated. Or, there's been a lot, there was a lot of desire. Just why this mastermind group is growing so fast, because there's so much hunger for that. And also, and this is part of, so I created this like goddess secret sauce. It's like part of what we as women need. We really are wired for sisterhood, and we need that. So I created Real Estate Investor Goddesses, and it's been growing. And what I teach foundational principles for investing in real estate, and it's called the wealthy formula, because each letter of wealthy stands for a part of it. So W is womanly. So how do you invest in a way that is womanly, that honors the women that we are, because we are not men, we think differently, and we have success differently. So, and I'll go into that. That's really what I want to share with you guys today. The E is education, and I think you guys all get that real estate, it seems like it's common sense and it's not brain surgery, but you really do need to get educated to be successful. Mistakes can be, I say you're going to get an education either way. It's better to have it on the front end. It's much less painful, much cheaper than on the back end, but you're going to get it either way. A is assets. So we talk about, like, what are different asset classes, what are different asset strategies, and also asset protection. L is location, basically markets. How do you find a market that will be successful? T is your team. Who do you need in your team? H is how you pay, different financing options. And finally, Y is you, because real estate investing is not one size fits all. So how do you go about it in a way that will match your desires, your resources, how you want to play in this game, and your creativity. So that's the formula that I teach. And in the W part, I just say there's the goddess secret sauce. And that's what we need as women to not just be successful, but be successful in a way that I think invites more ease, grace, and flow into our lives. And it starts with, for women, and I saw somebody said, I just attended a mastery conference in Orlando, no line in the women's restroom during break. That is the only positive. That is a good thing. Because I have a wealth through real estate event. We just had it at the end of September. We had 180 women. So lines at the ladies' room were long. I have to say, I actually was like, we sort of usurped the men's room at the conference. But so other than having to, not wait in line, I like having my ladies around. Okay, so. Anyway, so the goddess secret sauce. First, it starts with desires. And I say desires versus goals, like SMART goals. Not that SMART goals are bad. They're just realistic and kind of small. They're almost if you're trying to be realistic and achievable, it boxes you in a little bit. And I think with desires, we can be more open. And I think that what we desires us. And often when you're just trying to keep your goals SMART, then you can go a lot smaller than you need to. And as women, like, if we allow ourselves to just tune into our desires, and you're going to add the rest of the secret sauce to your desires, magic can happen. Because it's not necessarily reasonable to expect to have 1,000 units in a year, but it's possible if you allow yourself to dream that big and desire so much. So the desire is the first piece. I think SMART goals are a little masculine and limiting. So once you have your desire, then you can split them up into little goals. But allow yourself to dream big. And I'm all about encouraging my goddesses to not be realistic. I'm like, don't be realistic, just really dream. Like, what if you could create anything? You're a magic wand. Like, what does that look like? And then let's go for that. And then you want to add pleasure. So pleasure is the first piece, because the masculine way, right? We're all taught, you got to man up, you got to muscle through. It's got to be like no pain, no gain, like hard work. Like that's the manly way, right? I don't know who's been taught that. That's how we're taught to be in this world. Now, women, we do much better when, instead of muscling through, if we can pleasure through. If we're really tuned into what feels good and adding in pleasure, then it really is life-changing. A lot of this I got from this woman called Regina Thomasschauer. She goes by Mama Gina. She had a school in New York called Mama Gina's School of Womanly Art. She actually has a book, which I recommend. It talks a lot about this. So in a lot of ways, the womanly arts that I learned from her, because I've been studying with her since 2004, is what's I've married with real estate investing. But the womanly arts, it's what helped me to attract my husband and all of these things. Like, people are like, you are crazy, man. Like, you think about, so you talk about it once and then you manifest like that. And it's because I put this into my life, so that the right people show up. Like, all of this just kind of seems to just show up for me, but it's because I'm putting in this goddess secret sauce part. So the pleasure is the first part. And it's really, it's focusing on doing things that feel good. So adding pleasure into your life doesn't even have to be necessarily like, okay, you're working on real estate investing. And I find that if I feel like I'm hitting a brick wall, I'm like, oh, I need a pleasure break. And so maybe that's a dance break. Maybe that's having sex with my husband. Maybe that's a bubble bath. Maybe it's getting a massage. Maybe it's a spa day. But pleasure. So make a long list of like what brings you pleasure. Of at least 30 things, and you can do like one a day. So you want to have, like, I call it like your daily dose of vitamin P, your pleasure, like you need like your dose of pleasure. And like the more stuff you need, that's like, go away to get pleasured, and then like, things will open up. And then there's certain things that, and if you're doing something that is not pleasurable and is not leading to a pleasurable result, then it's got to get out of your life. So if something might not be pleasurable, but it's leading to a pleasurable result, maybe you're commuting, but you're commuting to go, speak at an event you're super excited about, or you're going to go check out property or something like that. Like, that's, maybe you're not in the journey is not necessarily the pleasurable part, but it's leading to a pleasurable result. But if it's not pleasurable and it's not leading to a pleasurable result, you shouldn't be doing it. And then the last piece is, if it's leading to a pleasurable result, it's not pleasurable, add pleasure to it. So you're on the commute, maybe you're not commuting, but then you put on your favorite music or your favorite podcast, or, I will often, if I have to wash dishes, I put on my tiara, I put on my belly dancing skirt, put on some favorite music, and now it's a party, and it's fun, right? So you add pleasure. So that's the first part. Then intuition is the next part of the goddess secret sauce. So this woman's intuition piece. Our intuition is our life GPS. And as women, everybody has intuition. As women, we are even more attuned to it, although we're often taught not to listen to it, not to pay attention to it, because it's not logical. Our intuition is by definition not logical. Comes from a different part of your brain. It's more in the right brain. Logic is on the left brain side. And so it's almost like you can tell I don't know if you guys have gotten that. You get this voice you think is your intuition, but then there's another voice that's arguing against that other voice. And you're like, which voice am I supposed to listen to? Well, I'll give you a hint. Your intuition is going to be that immediate response, that immediate thing, sensation, immediate answer, the immediate knowing, the immediate visual, the immediate sound. It's the immediate, and it's not going to logic you. It's not going to give you logical reasons why you should pay attention to it. That's the other voice. And the other voice is really good at the logical reasons. They're very, very compelling. So that's the secret of that other voice. And it's going to say, oh, no, you should not do that because so-and-so said not to, and they're very successful. Or, that other, you should work with that person. They've won an award or what. It'll tell you all of these very compelling reasons why you should ignore that initial voice. So if you are wondering which one should I ignore, which one should I follow, it's actually going to be the one who's not giving you the reasons. That's your intuition. And it's going to be hard because it knows exactly what to say to you to keep you small, to keep you safe. That ego voice, and it's like perfectly calibrated to know the exact thing that will make you not do that, what it doesn't want you to do. So, but you know the secret now. It's not going to logic you. Your intuition will just say, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not going to tell you why you should or you shouldn't. It's just going to say, don't do it. Or it's going to say, do it. You just have to do it. So that's how you know. So intuition. And then it is mindset is the next piece, because what we think our thoughts will determine our behaviors, which will determine our results. So that mindset piece is so crucial. We really have to get our beliefs in check and shift them so that we are thinking in such a way to encourage our success. So that requires some sleuthing and really like realizing you can't believe everything you think. Right? So we have all these thoughts, but just because we're thinking them doesn't mean they're true. And often they're not true. So it's being about like really listening to what you say to yourself, listening to what you're saying to others, and then just going, oh, does that serve me? Does that serve me to think that way? And really like shifting around your mindset. And the last piece is sisterhood. And you guys are all part of this because you get that. We as women are biologically wired for sisterhood. There's you're familiar with oxytocin. That's the bonding hormone. So you get oxytocin, floods your brain, and your body like, wee, feels really good. It gets us connected to other people. And we're flooded that way. Our brain floods us with good things that are as good feelings. So we know this is good for us. And you get oxytocin when you're breastfeeding. You get oxytocin release and orgasm, lovemaking, and you get oxytocin in groups of women. We have oxytocin release just being in a room full of other women, especially like positive sisterhood. We are wired for sisterhood. There are studies that say, for men, they have like a fight or flight or freeze response for stress. For women, how we deal best with stress is tend or befriend. We actually, for us, stress, like being around other women or taking care of our little ones, that's how we deal best with stress. There's studies showing we learn better around groups of other women. In so many ways, like this sisterhood is really important for us. So it's so awesome that we're all part of this group, because this is really a big part of what fuels us and fuels our success. Also, I'm, one of my goals in creating Real Estate Investor Goddesses, and why I'm excited about being here is, there's this old boys network in the real estate investing world. I don't think it's a conspiracy. It's just people work with who they know and like and trust, and they just know and like and trust other men. But I'm all about creating a sassy sisters network where we can work with and support each other. So that's what the sisterhood is about. And that's basically the goddess secret sauce.
All right. So that being said, thank you so much for sharing that secret sauce. I've been taking all the notes, and so it's amazing. I love it. So you're one of the women, Monick, that paved the way for us, because obviously in the beginning, maybe 2-3 years ago, even if it's just 2-3 years ago, there were just very few women in the industry. So we consider you basically as one among, the very few that paved the way for us all women here now, that inspired us as real estate investors. So my question to you is, in a woman's perspective, what do you think is the reason why there is still an imbalance in number of women versus men in real estate space?
Yeah, I think there are three main reasons. One is a lot of us don't even know that this exists as a possibility for us. This is how I was, right? It's like I was educated, I knew a lot, but I just did not know this existed as a possibility. So that's the first thing. We're not taught, and this kind of gets me, and this is one of my pet peeves and also one of my passions to change. I feel like people are taught, barely they're taught financial literacy, but nobody is taught, or very few people are taught wealth literacy. And how do you build wealth? And I think real estate investing is one of the best places to build wealth, and people aren't taught that, and they don't know that this is possible for them. So I think that's a big one. I think another reason is that maybe they realize, okay, this is possible, but then they have no idea how to start. They're like, oh, I see she's doing this, or he's doing, how do you get into it? And it feels so overwhelming. And the numbers are big.
Right?
Sorry?
It felt very intimidating as well. I remember.
Yeah, it can be. Well, that's the last piece. The last piece is, so the first is you don't even know that it's a possibility. Second, you know it's a possibility, but you don't know what to do. And then the third is you know what to do, but it's so scary. It's so big, right? Or it's so like you're terrified. And there's a lot of fear. So I think and it sometimes can be intimidating, especially you walk into a room and then it's like all these guys and you're all like, I don't know, nobody looks like me. Is this for me? Can I do this? So I think it's a combination of those things. Different people have different reasons why they're not doing it, but I think it's one of those three reasons why there aren't more women doing this. But that's what I'm committed to changing, and you guys are too.
Yeah. So can you tell us what is the biggest pitfall in real estate investing, especially in multifamily investing?
In my opinion, the biggest pitfall is it's not doing good conservative math. Really, it's about the numbers. That the numbers need to make sense, and you can do little things that swing the numbers a lot, right? Like your exit cap is a little too. You're a little too optimistic about what your exit cap will be, or your rent increases, or different things. Like seemingly little changes can swing the numbers quite a bit. So I think that the math is a big one. And then also, like, even if you have the math, the other huge one is your team. So team is everything. Especially on the property management side. And you just have to have a team that can knock out, you create a business plan and all the numbers are sound, but then you need a team that can deliver. And I know quite a few, and we had a couple properties in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we just had the hardest time finding good property management companies. Like the property management companies were so bad. And if we had a good person at the desk, then the numbers go shoot, and then and then that person got fired, and the numbers went shoot, and then it was everything. Because ultimately your property management company is running your business, and so if they're bad, then there goes your business. Yeah, so it's either the being too optimistic about the numbers, or just not having the right team, not right people on the bus.
Okay, thank you. So can you also give us one super tip now that you've told us the biggest pitfall in real estate? Your super tip in getting started in real estate? Like, what can you advise a newcomer, a woman, to
Yeah. I think the best tip, what really helped us is partner, and I see that there's a question about like how I vet potential partners. Partner with people who are already crushing it at what they're doing and with whom you can learn. So you have to be able to provide value to them, so that they'll want to work with you. But it's like being able to attach yourself to them. So I'll give you an example how we, like, part of how we got started. So happened to be that, so we went to the real estate guys syndication seminar in that January. We came home like totally fired up, like, yeah, let's go, let's do this. And then you realize that, gosh, brokers don't necessarily want to talk to you, right? Unless you have some experience, you know what you're doing, but how do you get experience when you don't have the experience yet? It turns out, and this is part of like, got a secret sauce and the right people just showing up when you need it. My next door neighbor was the vice president of a real estate investment trust. And she'd done at this point almost $1 billion worth of real estate transactions, syndications, multifamily in like Southern California area. She was working for this trust. She had amazing experience, but she hadn't been able to do anything on her own account. And she was working like a crazy person. She was working like a manimal over there, but wanted to be able to do a deal, maybe something that was too small for her fund. But, so they were like looking at 400, 500 plus units. So 100 units in a different market was not in their wheelhouse, but that was what she was interested in doing. And that's what we were interested in doing. So we partnered with her. Our company is called Vineyard Investment Partners because we live on Vineyard and we're next door neighbors. And people always are like, do you invest in vineyards and wineries? Every once in a while we'll get like contacted. Like, I'm an attorney. I help people buy vineyards. And they're like, yeah, that's not what we don't have a vineyard yet, at least. So we part, and then it was like Vineyard Investment Partners, VIP. It just kind of, I was like, oh, we like that. VIP assets. That was VIP-assets, our website. So we created, and my husband's a graphic designer. So we got like very beautifully branded a website, and it looked like materials look really good. And the first person on our team was this person who had like almost $1 billion worth of real estate investing. So we had done, some real estate, and I was an attorney, and my husband had been a urban planner before. So we had some stuff that looked good, but in terms of like that direct experience, we didn't have, but she had. So our team had almost $1 billion of real estate investment. Our team had years of expertise. As a team, we were strong, even though most of the team was carried by her. And she didn't have the time, so we could go out and do the legwork. And for her, so it was definitely helping her, and she could like, underwrite something in 2 seconds. She looks at it and it's like, yeah, that's good or bad. Like, she had like the experience, and she had great relationships. So that opened a lot of doors for us. And we were able to be taken seriously because we had a really strong team. And it turned out she was even too busy when we were doing most of the work to invest with us. So we didn't actually ever end up investing together, or at least not yet, but that helped open the doors. And then once we got some deals under our belt, then we were able to go by ourselves. That was probably like the biggest tip I can give to help, like, to leverage other people's experience when you don't have any of your own yet.
Thank you. I totally agree with you in that one. I could say without my mentor, Rod Cleef, I keep telling everyone I meet, Rod Cleef changed my life. That is almost like my mantra. So it's really about aligning yourself with the right people. And that's the very, very important thing. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Monick. So that being said, I know that we're all readers here. As women, we especially like to read. Do you have any special book that you can recommend for even if it's just regular, reading material or real estate investing book?
Yeah, I'm a big reader. I'm reading all the time. But right now I'm reading Marie Forleo's book, Everything is Figureoutable. and it's really, really good. And just like when you're talking about that mindset piece, it is a really good book to help you shift your mindset. Just like shifting from, oh, it's really hard to like, everything's figure outable. Everything's figure outable. And it's true. So I think I would recommend that book right now.
Who's the author of that?
Marie Forleo, Forleo.
F-O. Because I'm probably going to put it in the note in here, because I'm sure people will be asking. So we're almost out of time, but my last question before the questions and answers, I'm sure a lot of us will have questions for you. What is your daily routine that you do that you believe contributes to your personal success?
Yeah, I've always been a big morning routine person. I started doing a couple of years ago the Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. So it's savers. So there's silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and scribing or writing. I don't do it quite in that order, but I do. I journal, I meditate, I read, I visualize with the affirmations, and then I go and I get my daughter to school, and then I go to work out on the, after I drop her off, and then I come back to work. So that, and then at night I think about, what did I do, and then I did the one thing by Gary Keller. Like, what's the one thing I can do towards my goals that in so doing will make everything else easier or necessary? So I ask myself that, and I do that one thing every day. And that's really life-changing.
Cool. That being said, thank you so very much. And thank you for sharing everything that we needed to know about your real estate journey, about your secret sauce, about your pitfalls, your experience, your loss.
I see a lot of questions in the chat. I don't know if we have time to go through some of them.
Can we do some questions?
I have a question. I was wondering, Monick, was it difficult for you to kind of bring the Mama Gina pleasure stuff into the real estate world? Because for me, I feel like I love that world, but it just seems so difficult to actually merge the two.
It's not been difficult, and that's what I teach. And so for my community of goddesses, we start with that because it underlies everything. And like I said, I've been doing it since 2004, so it's underlined everything I've done since then. So I'm always about pleasure. I'm always about tapping into my intuition. I bring that into everything I do, and it's just brought just the most incredible things into my life. So for me, I don't think it's hard to, I don't even know how anybody has how any women have any success without doing this. So I'm like, how do you do this without pleasure? You're just trying to work so hard. How do you do this? So it's just it underlies everything.
Well, that's really cool. I love that approach, and you clearly have the energy. So it's awesome to see.
Thank you.
And plus that's what makes us different, sets us apart from the male energy, to enjoy the pleasure and have some feminine enjoyment element in us,
Yeah. And guys love a woman that's in her pleasure. They really just want us to be happy. That's another thing I've learned through the Mama Gina journey. It's really, they're wired to help us. They're wired to serve. They want to make us happy, but it's hard. But we have to tell them how to make us happy, tell them what we need. And so a lot of times we kind of expect them to read our minds, or they should know, but they don't know because they don't think like us at all. So we get mad at them for not being able to read our minds and not thinking like women, but they're not women, but they are so happy to help us. if they can. Just so part of it too is like helping, like allowing men to be our heroes, because that's what they really want to be for us. So allowing, and that's also part of the journey, is like being able to work with the men. Mama Gina has another book called The Owner's and Operator's Guide to Men. And I recommend that too.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody else have any questions?
So I see questions here. I'd like to know more about how I vet potential partners or people that approach me to raise money for their projects. So there's one of my mentors called Beth Clifford. Her name is Beth Clifford. And what I learned from her is the 3 C's. So I use that to evaluate everybody I work with, whether they're an employee or they're a potential partner or contractor. Everybody who I bring onto my team, I go through the 3 C's, and this is in order of importance. So the first is character. So what is their character? What they like? What is the kind of integrity do they have? And I look at, for me, it's really important. How do they treat other people? Everybody. So how are they treating the wait staff? How are they treating, so I look at really how they showing up. So that integrity piece, you can't teach, and they have it. And if they show you who they are, believe them. So that's the character, the first piece. The second piece is commitment. So what is their commitment? First, well, not even first. First for me is, what is their commitment to my vision and values? So I believe in investing only when you can leave a property and a community better than you found it. Not about being a slumlord. It's not about taking every dollar out of a deal. It's about leaving a property and community better than I found it. So the people I work with need to have that same commitment to elevating the property and the community. They also have to have that same, I have a relationship for life philosophy. So I think really long-term about my relationships. It's not about like, how can I get the most out of this particular deal or whatever. I want, if I'm working with you, I want you to be happy so that we work together again and again and again and again and again and again for the rest of our lives. And I want the people I work with to have that same philosophy. I don't want them to just be about like screwing me, right? Or screwing whoever. It's like really like lifetime relationship. And then a commitment to the project, right? So if you hired a contractor and they're not really committed to your project, they have 7 other things they're doing, and yours is sort of somewhere on the line and the priority, like that's not going to work for you, right? So they need to be committed to showing up when you need them to show up, and they need to be like fully committed to whatever it is that you're doing. So that commitment piece. And then last but not least is capacity. So that skill set. So to a certain extent, that capacity piece can be taught and trained. So I have, a really awesome new assistant that I've hired. So I'm training her in certain things. So she had a great character, great commitment, capacity in certain ways, others not so much, but she's very smart and trainable. She has a capacity to learn. But generally speaking, when I'm working with a partner or a contractor or whatever, I want them to have the highest possible capacity. Another thing I've learned is work with the best. They won't cost you money, they'll make you money. So one of the big mistakes I've made was trying to like go with the cheapest to save money, because you're thinking, oh, well, it's dollars and cents, and if it goes cheaper, then it's not better. And not that the best is the most expensive necessarily. They're not necessarily the same. But don't go with the cheapest, go with the best. And so that, like, I look for people that have the high capacity. So when I'm looking at people that I'm going to be working, because mostly what I do is I raise money. I'm not on the operations side anymore. I've done that for a few of our buildings. I don't love that part. I love the capital raising. So that's what I do. I partner with other people. I can do a lot more deals. And then I don't have to deal with the headaches necessarily. So I look for partners that are really, really excellent and very that have a lot of experience in operating, because I can raise the money. I need them to be excellent operators, so I have happy investors. So that's what I look for. Hopefully that answered your question.
Any more questions?
And then I also saw a capital raise and acquisition side. So more on the capital raise.
Mm-hmm.
And how did I change the perception people have of me as a lawyer to real estate? Yeah. So, you wanted to speak? Did you want to ask? I think you can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for sharing. My name is Maria. So yeah, the perception, you know, my friends, my family, extended friends, friends of friends, that's where our circles of influence are. That's potentially where we find a lot of the money for maybe our first deals. But I'm finding that's actually the hardest money to bring on because they're used as a different person. And so, you know, and similar to you, I kind of have that strong academic background, strong corporate background, and half the people are like, well, that's risky stuff and you don't know what you're doing, you're new. So how do you overcome that perception that, hey, this is what I've been leading to, this is what I'm preparing myself for, and guess what, I am now. So, you know, if you can talk to us a little bit about that. Awesome.
That's a great question. To be honest, you're right. They are the hardest people to raise money from because as Robert Helm says, you know, people who've seen you drunk or in your underwear, they have a very different idea of you. And they're not thinking of you as a real estate investor. The people that it was much easier to raise money from were people I met at real estate investing events. People that are ready, because there are a few barriers people have, right, to get over before they can invest. First, they need to get real estate and why you would want to invest in real estate. Most people are not taught about real estate. If they're taught anything, they're just taught to get their own house. So they think about real estate. They're like, oh yeah, I'd love to invest in real estate. I'm looking to buy my first house. And I'm just like, oh, that's the same, right? Like, not same. That's not it. That's not what we're talking about here. But that's what they're taught. You know, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to refinance. I'm going to fix up my kitchen. And I'm like, no, not what I'm talking about at all. So they have to get real estate investing. So that's the first hurdle. The second hurdle is once they're into real estate investing, they have to get syndication. So because then that's a whole other, it's a whole other kettle of fish, right? It's a whole other thing. So in a real estate world, so in like RIAs, at real estate investing events, at least the people have already gotten the first one. And if you go to a multifamily event or something where they're learning about syndication, now they've already gotten past the second hurdle. For them, all is it a good deal? All right, does the deal work? Does the partners work? Then they're just thinking about like that particular opportunity that you're putting in front of them versus all the other hurdles. Whereas, you know, somebody who doesn't get the real estate, really doesn't get the syndication, and then doesn't get you as that person that could do it, then it's hard. So now a couple of years down the line, I'm starting to get friends and family that are investing more with me because now they see, oh yeah, like now, like 2-3 years later, they're like, oh, you do a lot of real estate. Tell me about that. You know, and they see it, and you're gonna prove it by being successful. And oh yeah, I just closed on 200 units and blah blah blah. And they're like, really? Tell me about it. And then like as you do it, then you just keep like dropping the seeds and there. It was funny because I had a cousin that came to my last event a couple weeks ago, and she was like, Monick, I had no idea you were doing this. Like, she was like, oh my God. And she was like, the event was so fun. It's so amazing. And she was like, I totally want to do this. And she was like, why didn't you say anything? I was like, well, I like dropped the seeds, right? Like you sort of like, you kind of, oh yeah, I'm doing this and real. And if they pick it up, go, oh, that's really interesting. Tell me more. Then they'll be, you could potentially sell. Or like get them into an opportunity. But if you sort of put it out there and they're like, wow, nice weather we're having. We're like, that's really good pie, isn't it? Right? Then they're not it. For a long time, it's really funny. So I talked to Robert Helm, right? I had this conversation at 10 minutes. I'm like, this is life-changing. Oh my God, I can't believe this. And then I go and I told my older brother, because he'd been in real estate he'd been really into real estate for a while. I was like, oh my gosh, you won't believe it. I met this guy named Robert Helms. He told me about syndication, and this is when you bring groups of investors together. He's like, Monique, I've been working with Robert. I've been studying with him for like 10 years. I'm always telling you about that. And I like told you about syndication. I invested in that. Remember when I went on that cruise that they do like 2 years ago? I was like, oh yeah. So he'd been talking to me about it for years, but when he was talking was like, wah, 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 wah. Like I just was not hearing it. I couldn't hear it from him. It just, that was like, he was not a real estate, he was just my brother and doing something, like I just couldn't hear it. So it's very likely that the people in your life just can't hear it from you right now. But eventually they will. So in the meantime, go fish in more friendly waters, I guess. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes.
Good.
Anyone else who have a question? Has a question? Anyone else?
I have a question.
Okay.
So my question is, Monique, I know that I've seen a lot of other types of deal structures lately. So for a while, I was basically seeing like 80-20 or 70-30 split with a pref. But now I'm seeing a lot more of like the Class A and Class B members or no pref at all. I've seen a lot more like creative stuff going on. So my question for you is, what type of deals do you like to raise for? Like, what do your investors like the most? And have you seen any type of preference with that? Or is it more so just deal specific? Like if the numbers work, you can raise.
If their numbers work, I can sell it. But my investors over time, they're just like, they trust me more and more. So, but I think I started out actually just really simple, like 80-20 or, and that was like really clean splits. I prefer the more simple the deal structure, the more I prefer it. The easier it is to explain. Like 80-20 is so easy to explain. Like people get that. But then when you talking about prefs and the waterfalls and all, I'm just like, oh my God. Like then you have to like chart it out for them. It's like, okay, so after the first 8%, then you get this and that. So I can do that, but like simple is best in my opinion. But it has to make sense for the deal. And then, there are like occasionally I'll have somebody, they're like, I don't really like investors taking fees. And, and then I have to sort of like have a whole conversation about like, you need to fund functions. Like there's work that's being done. And if it's not funded, and then we have this whole conversation. But, different people they're like, they don't want it unless there's like a pref. And, so certain people have their own, what they like. And so it might not be the deal for them. But for the most part, I think, we're able to fund almost anything, but I like simpler structures.
Yeah, that makes sense. So kind of an unrelated question, but of all of your investors, like for your typical deal, now that you've been in this a while, do you find that most of your investors are repeat investors? Like what's your percentage of repeat investors versus new investors now that you've been in this for several years?
Yeah, they're starting to repeat, in terms of percentage, because the pie keeps getting bigger. So we get a lot of new people joining our list all the time. It's actually slightly a problem. So like we're doing this fund, a debt fund for, so this is, it's not multifamily, but we created a fund that's buying properties in Jackson, Mississippi. We're fixing them up and then reselling them as turnkey properties down, to investors at the other side. And the fund is a very generous fund, so it's like an 18% return, annualized return, like fixed return for the investor. So we did the first raise fairly easily, and then we allowed our investors to get like first right of refusal on the second round. We were doing 3 rounds, and then they took like 60% of the deal right away, and then we had like 40% left to raise. And then on this last one, like one investor wants the whole raise. And it's only $1 million, but she's like, can I take the whole $1 million? And which is easy, but then the problem is you do sort of want to be able to give like other people opportunity to invest. I never thought I'd have this problem where I was like, oh, I'm going to have like too much money and not enough opportunity. But so it's like, yeah, you can have like 80% of it, right? So I can still like offer, like, you still want to be able to let people know there's opportunities to come in. So, but that's, yeah, so it is getting to the point where people, you know, once they start getting the checks, they're like, ooh, I like this. Like, let's do this more. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. That
So
makes sense.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to go in like 2 minutes, but yes.
Okay, so this is from a super basic newbie, so this might be really easy to answer. If you are starting with somebody of like your caliber, which I won't start that high, of course, but what if I find the deal, what piece of the pie do I give someone like yourself and I keep for myself, you know, finding that deal and going into business?
So it kind of depends on how much you're going to be doing, right? So there's a lot of pieces of the pie. One is like finding the property, getting it under contract. Because we ended up doing that, like finding 2 buildings in Albuquerque. We got them under contract, and then we brought in an experienced partner. He ended up at that point raising most of the money because he had most of the contacts at that point. We had a tiny little list and no experience, and he did. So we went 50-50 on that particular deal. But I don't think there's a right or wrong. It kind of depends on but err on the side of being generous, because once you get the deal under your belt and you have that experience, like once you get past that first deal, it gets so much easier. It's so much easier. So just like do what you need to do to get it done. Yeah, ask people what they want and why and what they're willing to do for it. And but understand that if you're bringing a deal, then you have a lot to, good deals are not the easiest thing to find these days. So that's valuable too. And you have education. And so don't think like, what do I have to offer? Like, who am I? And like, no, you're like, you've been educated and you're coming up with you have a deal in hand. So that's valuable. So make sure you get value for what you're putting in, and you're going to show up and deliver, but make it win-win and think relationship for life.
Okay. Thank you.
So Monick, I have one last question for your last minute. So I see that you've done so many different asset classes, not just multifamily. You've done mobile home parks. Could you tell us about your experience with mobile home parks, and would you invest again, or is it something that you?
So I wish I could say I've had the best experience with a mobile home park. This particular park we have one that's not been a great experience. That it had this lagoon sewage system and the sewage, it breached, and we paid $600,000 for the park. That breach to fix has been $500,000. So the numbers have not worked very well on this particular park. So it hasn't been great. But I think they can be really good cash cows. Depending on the type, they tend to be super, super, super low income properties, right? So it's a little bit closer to like C- D+ sometimes. And so you have to have really good property management in place. It's not quite like a D+ apartment, because generally people will own their own homes. So they'll own the homes that's on there. So there's a pride of ownership, but you can have some of the other challenges you have in that kind of neighborhoods, like drugs or crime or whatever. So it's just like buying it well and then having good property management is the challenge with those parks. So we had partnered with a company that they're called Four Peaks, and they have a lot of parks, and they have that experience, but this particular park has not been great. But it's not to say that I wouldn't do mobile home parks again. It's just I learned afterwards, like lagoons, don't ever buy a property with a lagoon. So anyway, but they can be quite good cash flowing properties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I've been able to do a lot of different asset classes, especially because as we're more on the fundraising side, I don't have to have that expertise on the operation side. And I can broaden. So I really like this, because I'm kind of a real estate nerd, and I love learning about different types of things. And I like to go deep, and I sort of like dabbling in different markets and different asset classes. And I can do that because I don't have to, when you're running the deal, you have to know like really, really well that market, that deal, that asset class, everything. So I need to know enough to vet it. And I need to know enough to vet it more than my investors need to vet it, because they're trusting me to vet the deal and the partners. But because I don't have to go as deep, I can go into different areas. So that's why we've been able to do development projects and RVs and mobile home parks and industrial. And I can play because I can be more broad, because I'm specialized in the fundraising. So I can be more broad in the asset classes.
Yeah, that's great. All right, I think it's time for us to say goodbye and say thank you to you, Monick. Monick, you gave us so much this evening, and we've learned so much. And thank you so much for your generosity of your time and your knowledge. And I want to thank everyone in behalf of Candace, my partner, Candace and Michelle. Candace Pilgrim and Michelle Opelt, who's not here right now, but we want to thank you all, and thank you so much, Monick. And we'll see you guys again next month. We do have a scheduled a Zoom call next month at 6 p.m. this time, Pacific Standard Time, and it's gonna be with David Tupin. He's going to be talking about analysis, and that's going to be on mark your calendars. That's going to be on November 13th, Wednesday. Okay? Again, Monick, thank you so much, and thank you, everyone.
Thanks for
Candace,
having me.
thank you so much. Okay, bye.